You think control is about discipline. It's not. It's about becoming immune to yourself. Most people lose before the battle even starts. They lose in their own minds, reacting when they should observe, defending when they should detach, speaking when they should mirror. You've been taught that self-control means restraint. That's surface level. Real control is architectural. It's the ability to witness your own chaos without becoming it, to feel rage, fear, desperation, and act like none of it exists. Machiavelli didn't suppress emotion. He operated outside of it. And that's the difference between someone who survives and someone who dominates. Here's the truth no one tells you. The world doesn't reward fairness. It rewards positioning. It rewards the ones who can stay cold when everyone else is burning. You've spent your life trying to be good, trying to be reasonable, trying to earn respect through kindness. And where did it get you? Used, overlooked, dismissed. Because weakness wears a friendly face. And the moment people sense you need their approval, their validation, their mercy, you've already handed them control. Machiavelli built a system to prevent that. 8 principles, no emotion, no excuses, just ruthless clarity. This isn't philosophy, it's survival psychology. These principles weren't written for comfort. They were forged in exile, betrayal, and political warfare. And they worked because human nature hasn't changed. People still manipulate, still chase power, still exploit kindness. The only question is whether you're going to keep being the target, or whether you're ready to become untouchable. Let's break it down. You lose the moment you react. Every emotional outburst, every defensive reply, every need to correct someone who disrespects you, that's submission dressed as strength. Machiavelli understood this early. He watched men with power crumble because they couldn't sit with discomfort. They needed to respond. They needed to defend. And that need became their leash. The first rule of control isn't about what you do. It's about what you refuse to let touch you. Emotion is an invasion. It enters through your pride, your fear, your need for fairness. And once it's inside, it runs you. Most people think self-control means holding back anger. That's surface level. Real control is deeper. It's the ability to witness your own rage, your own hurt, your own desperation for approval, and choose silence. Not because you're weak, because you're calculating. Machiavelli trained himself to feel without acting, to register insult without flinching, to absorb betrayal without revenge, at least not immediately. That gap between stimulus and response is where dominance lives. You either own that space, or it owns you, and most people never even know it exists. Here's what happens when you react. You teach people exactly how to manipulate you. You show them your buttons. You reveal your weakness. Every time you explode, every time you defend yourself emotionally, you're handing over a manual on how to control you. Machiavelli never gave that away. He was a mirror, cold, reflective, unreadable. People couldn't predict him because he didn't operate from emotion. He operated from strategy, and strategy requires emotional neutrality. Not numbness, not repression. Neutrality. You see the game clearly when you're not in it emotionally. I've tested this in rooms where I had every reason to lose my temper. Disrespect, lies, manipulation aimed directly at me. And I said nothing. Not because I didn't care. Because I understood that silence is a form of power they can't decode. It unsettles people when you don't react. They expect anger. They expect defense. When you give them nothing, they start second-guessing themselves. That's when you've taken control without even speaking. Machiavelli mastered this art because he understood human psychology at its core. People fear what they can't read, and you can't be read when emotion doesn't run you. But here's the trap most people fall into. They think control means suppression. They think it means bottling everything up until they explode later. That's not control. That's delayed reaction, and it's just as weak. Machiavelli's neutrality wasn't about hiding emotion. It was about processing it privately, strategically, and only acting when the timing served him. He didn't react in the heat of the moment because that's when you make mistakes. He waited. He studied. He let others reveal themselves while he remained composed. That composure wasn't natural. It was trained. And that training started with one principle. The mind that reacts is already conquered. But controlling the mind isn't enough if you don't control the body that carries it. Your body is either your weapon or your cage. Machiavelli knew this. He treated his physical discipline like a soldier treats his rifle, maintained, sharpened, never neglected. Most people think power is intellectual. They believe reading philosophy and understanding psychology is enough. It's not. If you can't command your own body, you have no business trying to command anything else. Self-indulgence is self-betrayal. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you're voting against your own dominance. And those votes accumulate. They build a pattern, an identity of weakness. Discipline isn't something you do, it's something you are. Machiavelli didn't wake up motivated, he woke up committed. There's a difference. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes based on how you feel. Commitment is structural. It exists regardless of emotion. You don't need to feel like training. You don't need to feel like studying. You don't need approval or encouragement. You do it because that's who you are. That's the identity you forged. And once discipline becomes identity, it stops being a struggle. It becomes automatic. You're no longer fighting yourself. You're simply executing. Here's where most people fail. They treat discipline like a phase, a 30-day challenge, a New Year's resolution, something temporary they endure until they fix themselves. That's why they never change. Discipline isn't a fix, it's a lifestyle. It's the refusal to negotiate with your own weakness. Machiavelli built his routines like fortresses. No exceptions, no cheat days, no just this once. Because he understood that every exception is a crack, and cracks become breaks. You either hold the standard or you don't. There's no middle ground. The moment you compromise, you teach yourself that your word means nothing. And if you can't trust yourself, no one else will either. I've watched people with talent destroy themselves through lack of self-command. Brilliant minds, strategic thinkers, but they couldn't wake up on time, couldn't say no to distractions, couldn't skip the drink, the binge, the easy dopamine hit. And all that intelligence meant nothing because they had no foundation. Power without discipline is just potential, and potential without execution is worthless. Machiavelli executed every day, whether he felt like it or not, whether people were watching or not. Because his standard wasn't external, it was internal. And internal standards are the only ones that matter. But here's the brutal truth. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being relentless. You will fail, you will slip. You will have days where you fall short. That's not the issue. The issue is whether you let that failure become permission, whether you use one mistake as justification for more. Machiavelli's ruthlessness wasn't aimed at others. It was aimed at himself first. He didn't tolerate excuses. He didn't rationalize weakness. He corrected it immediately and moved forward. No guilt, no shame, just recalibration. That's the difference between someone who talks about discipline and someone who lives it. One treats mistakes as identity, the other treats them as data. But ruthless self-command is only the beginning. The real test is whether you can maintain it when emotions try to pull you off course. Feelings are not facts, they're signals. And most people mistake signals for truth. Machiavelli didn't. He trained himself to observe his own emotions the way a scientist observes a specimen, with curiosity, not attachment. When anger rose, he noted it. When fear whispered, he catalogued it. But he never let those sensations dictate his actions. That's the discipline most people never develop. They feel something and immediately believe it. They let emotion become their compass. And that compass leads them in circles right back to weakness. Emotional distance doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being controlled by what you feel. There's a gap between experience and reaction. Machiavelli lived in that gap. He could sit in a room full of people who hated him and remain composed, not because he didn't sense the hostility, because he refused to let that hostility invade his decision-making. Fear wants you to retreat. Anger wants you to attack. Pride wants you to defend. And all three will destroy you if you obey them. Machiavelli understood that emotions are manipulative by nature. They push you towards survival responses that feel urgent but are rarely strategic. Here's what happens when you lose emotional distance. You become predictable. People learn your patterns. They know that if they insult you, you'll defend yourself. If they ignore you, you'll chase validation. If they threaten you, you'll either fold or explode. Either way, they're controlling you. Machiavelli refused to be controlled. He watched his own reactions like a chess player watches the board. He saw his anger as a piece trying to move itself, and he overrode it. Not with suppression, with awareness. He let the feeling exist without letting it command him. That's mastery. Most people are passengers in their own minds. Machiavelli was the driver. I've been in situations where staying calm cost me everything emotionally. Disrespect I wanted to answer. Betrayal I wanted to punish immediately. But I didn't. I watched my own fury like it belonged to someone else. I let it burn without feeding it. And that distance gave me clarity. I saw moves I wouldn't have seen if I'd reacted. I recognized manipulation I would have missed if I'd been emotional. That clarity became power. Because while others were busy feeling, I was busy strategizing. Emotional distance isn't cold, it's efficient. It's the refusal to let temporary feelings dictate permanent consequences. But here's the hardest part. Maintaining distance requires constant practice. Your brain will try to pull you back into emotional thinking. It'll tell you that feeling something intensely means it's important. That if you don't react now, you'll lose respect. That's a lie. Machiavelli knew it was a lie. He trained himself to delay emotional processing, to feel everything later, in private, where it couldn't compromise his position. In the moment, he was an observer, cold, analytical, detached. And that detachment wasn't weakness, it was survival. Because in a world where everyone else is ruled by emotion, the one who isn't becomes untouchable. But distance alone isn't enough. You need to transform it into something sharper, something weaponized. The moment you stop needing, you start winning. Machiavelli didn't hope for loyalty. He didn't pray for fairness. He didn't need people to like him. That detachment made him dangerous. Because when you need nothing from others, they can't leverage you. They can't bribe you with approval. They can't threaten you with rejection. You become a force they can't manipulate, and that terrifies people. They're used to trading, respect for obedience, affection for compliance. But you can't trade with someone who needs nothing. That's when detachment becomes a weapon. Control begins when outcomes stop mattering. Not because you're apathetic, because you've calculated every scenario and accepted all of them. Machiavelli looked at people like pieces on a board, useful when aligned, replaceable when not, predictable because human nature is consistent. He didn't attach meaning to their actions. He didn't personalize betrayal. He didn't celebrate loyalty. He observed patterns, and patterns are neutral. When you stop assigning emotional weight to people's behavior, you see them clearly. You see what they want, what they fear, what they'll do next. And that clarity is control. Most people lose because they're invested. They need the promotion. They need the relationship. They need to be right. And that need becomes a hook. Machiavelli had no hooks. He wanted things, sure. But want and need are not the same. Want is strategic. You move toward it when conditions align. Need is desperate. You compromise yourself to get it. Desperation smells like weakness. It broadcasts vulnerability. And once people sense you need something from them, they own you. Machiavelli refused to be owned. He engaged with people from a position of option, never obligation. That's why he could walk away from anyone, anytime, without hesitation. I've tested this in negotiations where I had everything to lose. I walked into rooms knowing I could leave with nothing, and that knowledge changed everything. I wasn't attached to the outcome. I was exploring possibilities. When the other side sensed I didn't need the deal, their entire strategy collapsed. They started offering more, trying harder, because desperation had shifted to their side. That's what detachment does. It transfers power. The person who needs least controls most. Machiavelli built his entire approach on this principle. He never showed hunger, never revealed dependency. He treated every interaction like an experiment. Interesting if it works, irrelevant if it doesn't. But detachment isn't indifference. That's where people misunderstand it. Indifference is passive. Detachment is active. You're fully engaged, fully aware, fully strategic. You're just not emotionally hijacked by the result. Machiavelli cared deeply about power, but he didn't need any single person or outcome to get it. He had multiple paths, multiple options, multiple contingencies. That's the architecture of detachment. You build redundancy into everything, so no single failure breaks you, no single betrayal surprises you, no single loss devastates you. You're always 3 moves ahead because you're not clinging to the current move. But detachment without observation is just isolation. The real weapon is what you do with the distance you've created. Silence is information. Machiavelli spoke less than anyone in the room, and that's why he knew more. While others performed, he studied. While they debated, he catalogued. Every gesture, every hesitation, every word they chose and every word they avoided. Observation isn't passive watching. It's active hunting. You're searching for patterns, for contradictions, for the gap between what people say and what they do. That gap is where truth lives, and truth is leverage. The one who sees first doesn't just react faster. They shape what happens next. Most people talk to fill space, to be seen, to prove they're smart. Machiavelli did the opposite. He used silence as a mirror. People reveal themselves when you give them room. They over-explain. They justify. They expose their fears and ambitions without realizing it. And the more you say nothing, the more they say everything. It's a reflex. Humans hate silence. They interpret it as judgment, so they try to fill it with explanation. And in that explanation, they hand you control. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He never interrupted, never corrected. He let people talk themselves into corners, then used their own words against them later. Here's the principle: anticipation creates dominance. If you can predict what someone will do before they do it, you're already 3 steps ahead. And prediction comes from observation, not assumption. Machiavelli didn't guess at people's motivations. He watched their behavior over time. He tracked consistency. He noted when they lied, when they panicked, when they got greedy. And once he had enough data, he could engineer outcomes, not through force, through positioning. He placed himself where their predictable actions would benefit him. That's mastery. You're not controlling people directly. You're controlling the environment so their nature works in your favor. I've done this in professional settings, where I had no formal authority. I observed who wanted what, who feared who was lying about their capabilities. I said almost nothing in meetings. I asked questions and listened, and within weeks I knew more about the power structure than people who'd been there for years. That knowledge let me move strategically. I knew whose approval mattered, whose opinion was noise, who would fold under pressure and who wouldn't, and I used that map to navigate every decision. Observation gave me control without title, without force, without confrontation. But here's what separates casual observers from strategic ones: intent. Most people watch without purpose. They see things but don't catalog them. They notice but don't analyze. Machiavelli treated observation like intelligence gathering. Every interaction was a data point. Every conversation was reconnaissance. He didn't watch people to judge them. He watched to understand their operating system. What inputs produced what outputs. What fears drove what behaviors. And once he understood the system, he could manipulate it, not cruelly, efficiently. He spoke to their psychology, not their logic. And psychology always wins. But observation alone isn't enough if you act too quickly. Speed feels powerful, but it's usually weakness in disguise. Every insult you answer immediately is a battle you've already lost. Machiavelli knew this. He absorbed betrayal like a stone absorbs rain, without reaction, without visible damage. Not because he didn't feel it, because he understood that the moment you respond emotionally is the moment you hand over control. Real power isn't in the strike, it's in the pause. The gap between provocation and response is where strategy lives. Most people can't tolerate that gap. They need to defend, they need to correct, they need to hurt back. And that need is exactly what destroys them. Delayed reaction isn't weakness, it's weaponized patience. When someone attacks you and you don't respond, they're left in uncertainty. They don't know if you didn't notice, didn't care, or are planning something worse. That uncertainty eats at them. They start second-guessing. They start overplaying their hand. Meanwhile, you're calm. You're processing. You're turning their aggression into data. What did they reveal? What vulnerability did they expose by attacking? What do they fear enough to strike first? Those questions only arise when you're not busy reacting. Machiavelli lived in those questions. He let others exhaust themselves emotionally while he studied the battlefield. Here's what happens when you react live. You operate from their frame. They set the timing. They control the emotion. They decide when and how the conflict unfolds. You're responding to their move, which means you're already playing defense. Machiavelli refused to play defense. He delayed until he could reframe the entire situation, until he could respond on his terms, in his timing, with calculated consequence. Not revenge, consequence. Revenge is emotional. It's about making yourself feel better. Consequence is strategic. It's about teaching a lesson that prevents future attacks. And lessons require precision. You can't be precise when you're angry. I've been insulted publicly, lied about professionally, and betrayed personally. And in every case, I did nothing immediately. Not because I forgave, because I understood that immediate response is always weaker than delayed consequence. I let days pass, sometimes weeks. I observed how they moved after the attack, whether they felt safe, whether they got comfortable, and then I responded, not with emotion, but with action that removed their position, quietly, efficiently, without drama. They didn't even see it coming because they'd assumed my silence meant acceptance. That assumption cost them. And that's the beauty of delay. It creates false security in your opponents. But delayed reaction requires something most people don't have: emotional endurance. You have to sit with the discomfort of not defending yourself. You have to tolerate the unfairness of letting lies stand temporarily. You have to trust that silence now will compound into power later. Machiavelli had that endurance because he trained it. Every time someone disrespected him and he said nothing, he was building tolerance. He was expanding his capacity to absorb chaos without breaking form. And over time, that capacity became his greatest advantage. While others were reactive and predictable, he was composed and unpredictable. Chaos turned into strategy, insult turned into intelligence, and timing turned into dominance. But delay only works if you pair it with another principle, one that makes you impossible to manipulate through emotional exposure. The less you reveal, the more power you hold. Machiavelli understood that every word you speak is a window someone can look through. Every emotion you show is a lever they can pull. So he practiced emotional minimalism, not as suppression, but as strategy. He revealed nothing that didn't serve him. He expressed nothing that could be used against him. And in that silence, in that restraint, people couldn't predict him because they had no data. They couldn't manipulate him because they didn't know what he wanted. That uncertainty made him untouchable. Say less, not because you have nothing to say, because most things don't need to be said. Every explanation you give is a defense. Every justification you offer is a crack in your armor. Machiavelli didn't explain himself. He didn't defend his decisions. He didn't need people to understand his reasoning. He acted and let the results speak. That economy of language created an aura of authority. When you speak rarely, people listen closely. When you explain constantly, people stop taking you seriously. Your words lose weight. Your presence loses gravity. Machiavelli's words were sparse, which made them heavy. Each sentence carried consequence because there was no filler around it. Reveal less. People don't need to know your plans. They don't need to know your struggles. They don't need to know what keeps you up at night. Every piece of personal information you share is ammunition they can use later. Machiavelli kept his inner world locked. He showed outcome, not process. Victory, not effort. Confidence, not doubt. That curation of image wasn't dishonesty, it was survival. In a world full of opportunists, vulnerability is a target. The moment people know what you fear, they'll use it. The moment they know what you need, they'll withhold it. Machiavelli refused to hand over that leverage. He was a closed system, impenetrable, need less. This is the hardest part, because needing is human. We need connection, validation, respect, affection. But the more you need, the more you can be controlled. Machiavelli minimized his needs until they were almost invisible. He didn't need approval from peers. He didn't need affection from allies. He didn't need recognition from authority. That independence made him dangerous, because you can't bribe someone who needs nothing. You can't threaten someone who's already detached. You can't manipulate someone who operates outside the currency of emotion. Machiavelli's minimalism wasn't about deprivation. It was about freedom. The freedom to act without compromise. Here's the mechanism. When you reveal less, people start projecting onto you. They fill the silence with their own assumptions, their own fears, their own hopes. And those projections become your advantage. If they think you're ruthless, they'll avoid confrontation. If they think you're detached, they'll try harder to please you. If they think you're calculating, they'll second-guess their moves around you. You didn't have to say any of that. You just didn't say much at all. And in that void, their imagination did the work for you. Machiavelli exploited this constantly. He let people believe what served him. He never corrected, never clarified. He let perception do the heavy lifting while he stayed silent. But emotional minimalism is just the outer layer. There's one final principle that completes the system, one that turns every interaction into an advantage. You don't need to control emotion. You need to reflect it. Machiavelli mastered this final principle, the ability to mirror what others felt without absorbing it himself. When someone came to him angry, he didn't match their anger. He reflected calm authority, which forced them to adjust. When someone approached with fear, he mirrored confidence, which either reassured them or exposed their weakness further. The mirror principle is simple. You become the emotional standard in every room, not by dominating, by refusing to sync with chaos. People either rise to your frequency or reveal they can't. Either way, you win. Reflection is not absorption. Most people absorb the emotions around them. Someone panics, they panic. Someone gets aggressive, they get defensive. That's emotional contagion, and it's a form of surrender. You've let someone else's state determine yours. Machiavelli did the opposite. He treated emotion like weather, something happening around him, not to him. When people lost control in his presence, he remained still. That stillness didn't mean he was unaffected. It meant he refused to let their chaos become his. And that refusal forced them to confront their own emotion without using him as a mirror for their dysfunction. Here's what happens when you reflect instead of absorb. You hand people their emotion back. They see themselves clearly because you're not distorting the image with your own reaction. If someone yells and you stay calm, they hear their own volume. If someone manipulates and you stay detached, they see their own desperation. That reflection is brutal. It strips away the justification. It removes the drama. And most people can't handle that level of clarity. So they either correct themselves or they leave. Either outcome benefits you. You didn't escalate. You didn't engage. You simply refused to absorb. And that refusal is dominance. I've used this in confrontations where the other person wanted a fight. They came in hot, expecting me to match their energy. I didn't. I stayed neutral, not cold, neutral. I reflected their intensity back by remaining unmoved. And within minutes, they deflated because they had no friction to push against. Their anger had nowhere to go except back into themselves. That's when real conversation started. Not because I calmed them down, because I refused to be the container for their chaos. Machiavelli did this instinctively. He never gave people the emotional response they were fishing for. He gave them clarity. And clarity, when you're being irrational, feels like confrontation. But here's the deeper layer. When you master the mirror principle, you stop being reactive entirely. You become the frame, the standard, the gravitational center of every interaction. People adjust to you because you don't adjust to them. That's not arrogance, that's structure. You've built an internal architecture so solid that external emotion can't shake it. Machiavelli's mind was that architecture. He didn't win through force or charm. He won through imperviousness, through the refusal to let others dictate his state. And when you stop absorbing emotion, when you start reflecting it, you become untouchable. Not because you're cold, because you're sovereign. Control isn't something you take from others. It's something you stop giving away. Control isn't negotiable. You either have it or you're being controlled. Machiavelli didn't write rules for the weak. He wrote them for people who were done being walked over, done being predictable, done letting emotion run them into irrelevance. These 8 principles aren't suggestions. They're infrastructure. You either build them into your operating system or you stay at the mercy of people who already have. But principles without laws are incomplete. You've learned how Machiavelli trained his mind. Now you need to understand the laws he used to command everything around him. The framework that turned observation into domination. The rules that don't care about fairness, only about power. If you skipped the previous video, you're missing the foundation. 7 ruthless laws that command the world. Machiavelli's secret isn't optional, it's required. Watch it now, because knowing how to control yourself means nothing if you don't know how to control the game. Write this in the comments. Emotion ends where power begins. That's not a phrase, that's a declaration. You either live by it or you don't. The choice was never theirs, it was always yours.